In the pale blue
This
hush of an
land is
Arizona
ours,
dawn,
and we will
long
defend
before the
it.
first rim of sunlight kissed the red stone cliffs, Jonathan Hale, known to most folks simply as Old John, pushed open the creaking door of his battered ranch house and stepped into the brittle morning cold, his breath puffing like smoke from a dying locomotive. He was a poor rancher by every measure the West had to offer, with fences that sagged like tired shoulders, a barn roof patched with whatever scrapboards he could bargain for, and a herd so thin and scattered that sometimes even he wondered if the desert wind had more cattle to its name than he did. Yet despite the hardships that clung to his life like dust to his boots, John carried a quiet kindness in him, a softness unheard of in the frontier, where men learned to draw iron before they learned to pray, and it was that kindness, small, unassuming, and almost foolish, that would soon bring an army of 1,000 Apache warriors thundering toward his lonely ranch at dawn in a story no saloon could ever tell without lowering its lamps and whispering. The trouble had begun 3 days earlier when John, riding the dry wash north of his land in search of a runaway calf, found instead a wounded Apache boy no older than 12, slumped beside a mesquite tree with an arrow in his leg and exhaustion in his eyes. And though John knew full well the dangers of meddling in the affairs of the Apache nation, knew that settlers and tribes eyed each other with suspicion, as sharp as barbed wire, he also knew the look of a child in mortal pain. So with the slow, deliberate movements of a man who respects another man's world, he dismounted, laid his revolver in the dirt where the boy could see it, and lifted the young warrior into his arms. He carried him home against the desert wind that whispered warnings, tended the boy's wound with the herbs he learned from an old Mexican healer long dead, fed him what little stew he had left, and kept watch through the night as coyotes howled from the hills like restless spirits, never imagining that the boy he saved was the son of a powerful Apache chief whose warriors moved with the silence of smoke and whose pride burned hotter than the midday sun. And when morning came, the boy was strong enough to speak, offering John a single, solemn nod of gratitude before limping into the desert shadows from which he had come, leaving the rancher alone again with his cattle, his patched roof, and his uncertain place in a land that seemed to forget men like him. But the desert never forgot. It remembered every kindness the way it remembered every cruelty, storing them in its red canyons and its far-off mesas like secrets waiting for their hour, and John's hour was drawing near. For far across the horizon, beyond the dust-washed ridges, word had reached the Apache camp that their chief's son had been found, healed and sheltered by a white rancher who asked for nothing in return, and the chief, Tall Hawk, a man whose presence could still a river, gathered his warriors, not for war but for honor, for thanks, for a gesture the world would scarcely believe, and their horses stamped the earth as dawn approached on the third day, while John, unaware of the tide rolling toward him, saddled up to check the far fence line, humming a tune his mother once sang before the fever took her, thinking only of chores and weather and the price of hay, while the desert wind carried a tremor, a whisper, a warning of hooves.